Hey, y'all. Welcome to season 2 of the Reckless Optimist podcast. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a show about hope, strength, perseverance, and resilience. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Odette. Odette is a dear friend of mine. It's truly an honor to have her on the show tonight. She has been a mentor to me, a lighthouse, if you will. I look to her for guidance, and her story is a really unique, powerful message. She has gone through most of her life in recovery. She has gone through an eating disorder. She has gone through alcohol use disorder, and she has come through such a stronger person through all of these challenges. She tells her story so beautifully, and I know you guys are going to be super inspired by her message. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Odette to the podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Megan.
I'm so excited that you're here. This has been a long time coming.
This has been so long coming, if that's how you say it in English, since you were going to start, which I know it's been a minute now. And then I messaged Megan and I said, I think I'm ready. Let's do it.
Yes. Well, the day you were supposed to do it last year, there was like an earthquake, remember?
There was a big earthquake here in San Diego and I had to run and get my kids from school. So we are, I think, in the timeline that we're supposed to be doing it. So I'm happy to be here.
Very true. And the funny thing is, I actually saved this quote for you, and I still have your notes like from a year ago in my desk drawer. Like everything is saved, like perfectly frozen in time.
Oh, thank you for waiting, like I said.
I'd wait for you forever, girl. I have to tell everyone how I know you. So we have actually known each other for a long time, 7 years. So I met you, met in quotations, because you were one of the first people I ever heard on a recovery podcast, Recovery Elevator. And I remember thinking for the longest time, I thought I was the only one that had problems. And then I heard your story, and we have a lot of similarities. And I was like, oh my, you made me feel not alone. And I really connected with you. And then I got to meet you at the Bozeman retreat a few years after that. And then we've spent 4 summers now together. And now I think of you as like someone you're a mentor to me. I look up to you very much.
Thank you. I've learned a lot from you too. And I know that summer is our yearly meetup and, we all have our busy lives in between, but it's always been nice to know that we'll come together at that time and we get to see each other. And I've also been able to see you at other places now, but I'm appreciative of you too. And I always take away something from our conversations, which most of them have been running while we're out there alone in Bozeman. And it's always been very therapeutic to chat. So thank you as well.
I've loved watching your running journey because I have to tell this story. The first time I ran with you, I'm very hyper and very talkative. And you were like, Megan, I love you, but like, I haven't really learned to talk and run at the same time.
Oh my God, this girl, as everyone knows, is like flying and yipping away, doing that yearly update that I'm talking about to where we don't see each other for a year. And then it's like we try to pick back where we left off. And I'm like, I'm just going to listen. You can talk as much as you want, but I'm just going to listen.
That was so funny. All right, girl, we're going to get started with your quote that I've saved for you. This is by Paulo Coelho from the book, The Alchemist. I love this book. I read this book last summer. Have you ever read this book before?
Yes, but it has been like 14 years since I read it.
It's an oldie, and I love this quote. The quote goes, "When we love, we always strive to become better than we are. When we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too." What does this quote mean to you?
I mean, I often tell the people that are closest in my life that I think just from being in recovery for so long now, I mean, I started my recovery journey, I think like at 15 was the first entry to it. It's been so long that now I feel like I view the world and life through this like recovery lens, no matter what context I'm being like put in. And one of the biggest takeaways that, I've said many times before is just that centering and focusing on your own self and on your own growth and how you're pouring onto yourself will always just start rippling over onto everything that you're doing, every relationship that you're in, every endeavor that you're pursuing, whether it's personal, work related, it just all spills over. And that's what it means to me. The focus is a centered focus, but in such a way where it's not selfish. It's for the greater good. It's for the effect that it will have and the legacy that for me, I've just gone from wanting to change the world to just wanting to change the people that I'm directly in contact with a lot of the time. And that in itself is such a massive wave that, yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how, like all good lessons in recovery, you have to start with yourself. And there is a ripple effect, which doesn't mean that things become perfect or the way that we'd love for them to be. They just become better and they come whole, which, like I said, sometimes means there's little moments of ickiness or things that we didn't envision, and not in a romanticized way, but in a full, honest, and authentic way.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well said. Love how you interpreted that. Yeah, when I read this book kind of goes into, the meaning of life and the purpose of life. The protagonist of the story is trying to figure out his personal legend, right? Why is he here on this earth? What's the meaning of life? And it's funny that we have a year in between when I picked this quote for you and now, because when we were in Arizona, pacing our friend came, me and you had a really powerful discussion about how do we go for our own dreams at the same time as maintaining our other relationships. And it was such a powerful conversation. Like, how do you have that balance of going after everything with the fire inside of you, but also having the other side of life where you slow down and enjoy the moments and, appreciate those other relationships. And this quote makes me think of that. I'm still figuring that out. And me and you talked about that. I love how the advice you gave me is like, have one year where you like go 100% for your goals. And then the next year back off and help other people reach their goals. It was such good advice. But yeah, I love this quote. I love how when I think of it, the light that you ignite in yourself lights everyone around you as well, kind of like what you were talking about. But yeah, really connected with this quote.
I love it. Thank you for bringing it back to my memory. Like I said, it's been a while, but I do remember being young and being captivated by the book and by this whole idea of what do I want my legacy to be? And, I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I feel like I'm the other side of that. But I was having these moments of like, yeah, like I can have my own life and my own story. And it's a good book when you need a little bit of bravery to stay on your path.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I also think it talks about how, in order to like find your legacy and have your goals and your dreams, you have to take risks. Like he was constantly taking risks the whole book. And it just kind of reinforced that you have to get out of your comfort zone too.
Yes, yes, I agree.
Yes. Well, I'm super honored to hear your story. I've heard your story, but I love your story. And every time I hear it, I learn something new. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Of course. Yes. Thank you. I was talking to Megan a little bit before we started recording about how, same, when you've been in this for so long, I feel like I've shared my story many times, but also we're always evolving and changing. So things that maybe are highlighted in a version 2 years ago are not as big of a highlight now. So it's always just also a good reminder that we're always shape shifting and that stories ebb and flow. But I guess the beginning or the introduction for me on this journey is always having this inner feeling of non-belonging or of not belonging and always wanting it, right? I was oldest of three in my family, always a goody two shoes, really an overachiever since I was young. I didn't get the message verbally that if I achieved, I would receive love, but somehow I still internalized that that's how the world works. I was a good student and obviously got rewarded for that. And I just felt like I was on the right side of the street with my parents if I was doing well. So that really made me become a lot of the strengths that I have now, resilient and a hard worker, but at the same time, this growing perfectionism and really never knowing that what would happen or how would I be received if I messed up, if I made mistakes. My parents they were young when we had me, and I never really saw my mom out loud say, I'm struggling, I had a bad day, I made a mistake. So obviously in my little echo chamber of my house, if I was having those feelings or those days, I thought something was wrong because the people that I was around with seemed to never have a bad day, seemed to never make mistakes. So obviously I must do better because something is wrong with me. So anyway, that continued until I was older, and my mom is a beautiful woman. So there was always also a comparison situation happening in the background. She's beautiful. She's very thin, genetically thin, never has like even caught a ball or put on running shoes in her whole life. But, same, never heard a message from her about changing my body, but internalized it as, I need to look good. And how do I look as good as my mom? How do I stay thin? All of it just perfectionism, control issues all gathered into me, never feeling good enough, basically, and never feeling like I belonged. In the background of all of this, my dad was moving through an alcoholism that developed over a period of 20 plus years of actively being in it. Also, functional like myself with just life and performing, achieving, growing. Our family was growing. We were all growing up. I have two siblings. But when I hit my late teens, I definitely started noticing a shift with my mood. That's when I was diagnosed with clinical depression. And also, my first thing that I was messing with in terms of addictions was food behaviors. I started binging. And then I moved out to college, then started purging because I had less supervision. My dad was also spiraling at the time. So we were kind of on this little parallel journey where we were both snowballing into from nobody noticing to people noticing, and our lives kind of started to unravel. His job and work stuff started to fall through the cracks. With college and me, like I started blanking in classes and everything started to kind of fall apart. So my dad ended up going to rehab when I was almost 20, and I ended up moving home back from college with the excuse that I just wanted to be close to my family as this was happening. But the truth was is that I was also struggling. I wasn't healthy. I never was super thin to where people were really alarmed. So I was able to kind of stay in the radar of hiding my eating disorder. I met my husband, who I have now been with for 14 years. Obviously, didn't tell him that I had mental health issues. I was open about my dad, but didn't want to be rejected. So I didn't share my baggage. I moved here to the States. I was born and raised in Mexico. And a year into our marriage, I had a huge crisis with my eating disorder. I think I was just tired of what was happening in between my ears. I was mentally exhausted. I had been restricting and binging and purging and counting calories and just basically living in my head and out of the present moment for so long that I kind of just had like a day where I mentally broke down and told John, my partner, what was happening. And that's when I went to rehab. I went to an outpatient treatment center here, like an hour away from San Diego, where I would drive over there, stay all day, and then come home. I worked in the restaurant industry, so I would come home, work the night shift, and then go again for like I think 40 days was what my insurance covered. And at the same time, also that was our first marriage crisis, right? Because I had been withholding information from my partner, so the trust had been breached there and he was hurt, but also trying to support me while I was recovering. So it was like the first, I think, hurdle that we had as a marriage. And I'm now looking back, I'm proud of how we handled it because we got through it pretty early on in our relationship. And I was very committed to having a family, which I think really helped me stay on the path of recovery. Once I got out of treatment, I was just basically doing what my treatment team was telling me to do. They had a menu for me and I had to go to therapy every so often. And I was just treated it like a lot of things in life, like a project, a goal, and I'm just going to ace this. I'm just going to do this so that I can have my baby, like very, you know, order of operations. So, and now a year and a half after I went to treatment, we had our first baby. And pregnancy actually did well to my recovery. I was scared because obviously changing bodies and losing control in a way that you have to, because you have to surrender to pregnancy, was terrifying, but also really empowering because I felt like I was actually listening to my body instead of my brain. I was listening to body cues that I had lost in the last years and hunger cues. And it felt simple. It felt easy, but then fast forward, we ended up having two children. I noticed that now I was drinking a little more than usual. I didn't drink a lot when I was young, especially because it was calories and I was in this, caloric deficit mindset. So nothing that would add calories. But then the food noise was quiet, but the desire to kind of numb out or escape was what had stayed present. And the way that my brain now code switched a little bit was thinking, okay, we're not going to go back to an eating thing because that, we've done that. We've gone past that. Now maybe like this seems like it works. You can have some wine at night and everyone's having wine or the moms are having wine and your husband also really likes wine. So it seemed like the perfect thing. And I had already, checked myself off as like, of course, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. That's my dad. And I'm a bulimic. Like, that's the only thing I can be. I definitely have issues, but they're not alcohol and they've been healed. So that was not the case. I noticed that I started having similar thoughts that I had with food, but with wine, like how much longer until I can drink? Like, how much longer until I can eat? Or how much am I gonna drink if I'm gonna eat this? The like mental formula started coming back into the forefront of my mind where I'm negotiating, organizing play dates around it, looking forward to it all day, not really in the present, but in the moment of like, how is that relief going to feel like? And, it was in the back of my mind, like, maybe this is going to be a problem. Oh, no, this is not a problem. And a lot of back and forth. But time went on, and I did notice that I think if I had fully stayed on this path for many years, the outcome for me would have been more on the binge drinker side because I would go, days without doing it. But then on the weekend, I would be like, it's the weekend, let's do it. I had no problem quitting for a couple of days, but then I would have a good amount of drinks, like I said, on a Friday happy hour or the weekend. So I kind of feel like if I have to put myself in a bucket, it was between gray area drinker, but also sometimes binge drinker. I never really found a category for me, which basically made me prolong the reality longer. Because if I'm not someone who's drinking in the morning and I'm not someone who has a DUI and I'm not someone who nobody thinks I have a problem with drinking, then I don't have a problem with drinking. But it was a feeling thing for me, like a heart and soul feeling that felt so familiar to the food thing. It felt so predictable to what I knew the outcome would be. Like I know where this path leads me. And also, if I got fully honest, like I was needing it, I was using it as something that wasn't this, "Well, let's have it to celebrate or to socialize." I was using it fully as a coping mechanism, as a numbing effect, as a, I'm overly sensitive to sound and I get overstimulated. So I just like needed something to bring my nervous system down, which had been in hypervigilant mode since forever. Because if you're a kid of an alcoholic, you like live in this hypervigilant state, always monitoring everyone, always checking in on everyone. And when you have kids, I feel like that even heightened a lot of that hypervigilant state. So just like many of us, found myself Googling, like, do I have a problem? I found the Recovery Elevator podcast. Like how I said I am, very balls to the wall kind of person. Okay, I'm gonna then quit drinking and I'm gonna ace this like sobriety thing. I'm gonna do all the things that I need to do, burn the ships the day after I make the decision. Didn't even talk to my family or my partner. They're all like, what? Like, we have no idea. We didn't know you had a problem, or do you really have a problem? I'm just a very intense person, and my recovery has showed me to work on that intensity and also keep it where I need to keep it. But anyway, I went full out on choosing to not drink and found a great community through Recovery Elevator, which is where we met. And then I had a huge loss in my family. My grandmother passed. She was like the matriarch, I'm Mexican. She was the remember me matriarch, like from Coco. She was the grandma for so many of us. And I kind of had a case of the buckets when she passed. I knew I had all the tools. I knew what I needed to do and who I could reach out to, but I kind of just burned it all through the ground, which is also a big trait of children of alcoholics is self-sabotage. Like, nah, like I'm just gonna screw it. I was actually hosting the Recovery Elevator podcast at the time. I had already kind of created this persona around being someone who's sober and in the space and helping others. And I just like burned it to the ground in a day. I was struggling, of course, but I didn't use my tools at all. And I felt like that night when I drank, I chose not to. I chose not to use my tools, which is hard to even say, but I was just like, I don't want to do the right thing. I don't want to do the thing. Feel also when you've been in recovery for so long, you do get to these burnout moments where you're like, fuck, I have to do this the rest of my life, or I have to do the right thing and choose the next best decision. Sometimes I'm like, no, like I'm so tired of always having to like use these tools. And I also was a very goody two shoes forever that I feel like I have had rebellious moments of anger and behaviors that I never let myself do in a healthy framework. Like when you're in your 20s or when you're a kid, we all push the envelope and I never did. So I felt like as an adult, I've had to learn how to control these impulses that we all have as we're growing up. And it was all just kind of stored inside of me forever. So this was a perfect example. I obviously came clean to the community almost immediately and shared what had happened, but it shook me. And I think it did teach me that there was something still that I hadn't learned about my recovery path. There was something still that, even though I was checking all the behavioral boxes, there was something inside of me that still wasn't in alignment with who I wanted to be. And I feel like I got very scared. I stepped off the microphone. I didn't do interviews for a long time. My therapist suggested that I stop counting days because she was worried about my eating stuff and relapsing there. So I kind of just went dark for a little bit and I would go to Bozeman. I mean, I saw you a couple of years during those times, but I went from being extremely open and public to just being like, I don't want to talk about it. I need to figure it out on my own. I need to put my head down. Also processing shame of like being the face of an organization that someone else has built and then, went back out. So just a lot. And I didn't have answers. So I'm like, why am I going to talk to people if I don't even know what the hell happened or why exactly? I need to like put my head down and figure out what's happening. So along that time, I found breath work and I felt like that's when I really noticed, not just through breath work, but that a big part that was missing for me was healing my body versus just I was just healing my mind. Like, okay, I've learned and studied all these books, and now I know this about myself, and here's my story, and I can like map everything out conceptually, but my body still didn't believe it or understand it or hadn't processed certain things. So I got very curious about healing practices that are about embodiment and like coming back to your body. And when you hear all of this and you don't get it, you're like, not even mean coming home to your body and like what listening to your body. But I felt like I needed to give it a shot. I had given everything else a fair shot. So I did lean more on less therapy, more embodiment, breath work, dialed in more meditation, read more books that were more on that side of things. And I also think it just takes time. So, it's been all of these years, and finally you can connect what you've learned to how you feel. And sometimes these are connected, but sometimes you know better, but you don't feel better, or you feel better, but you don't know better. And it's just a big puzzle that I think is so personal and takes time, a lot of time. So anyway, at some point around almost 2.5 years ago, I really wanted to go back to day counting. It matters to me. It means something to me. It keeps me accountable and excited and engaged with my sobriety. I know I touched on the depression a little bit, but depression kicks my butt. And I feel like part of the reason why I'm such a go-getter and either find a race or a thing to do or a project to start is because if I don't have those things, I don't really care about the outcome anymore, but I just need for my body and my mind to stay engaged with being alive because I can so easily just fall into the dip, as I call it, and I can easily just isolate and stay disengaged. It's hard. I was trying to explain to my son, and I'm like, it just feels like I have this weighted blanket on top of me because we have one. So I like threw it on him, and I can't take it off for the life of me. And I get upset at myself because Megan, you and I share this like optimistic personality that is how I am wired. I'm someone who's naturally gravitating to happy, to the bright side, to the positives. So when the depression comes over, I get angry because a part of me is like, this isn't who I am. Like, why am I feeling and acting this way? I know this is not who I am, but I can't shake it, or it takes a while to shake it. So that demon for me has been a tough one because that's not something I can quit. But I have found that staying engaged with things that excite me is kind of a really good antidote to it because, maybe I'm not feeling great, but I have a run to do, or my kids are great too because I have a practice to go to even if I want to stay at home and have to drive them. So anyway, I've been counting days again for, like I said, over 2.5 years, and I've had a really good couple of years after a really bad couple of years before that. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself and I still am learning. And I've just learned to just be a little bit calmer, which this is some of what we discussed when we saw each other last. I don't want to not be this intense person, but also sometimes it doesn't serve me. And I want to learn how to stay grounded and steady and be a calm presence and be just a lighthouse. It's just standing firm versus being all over the place. And, today I'm vegan and tomorrow I'm not because I was vegan for a long time before my kids. And now I'm fully sober and tomorrow I'm not. And, I can't shame myself about it, but I've thought a lot about that intensity that I carry and how, in a way, it's empowering to change your mind and to be like, I've had all these lives in one life, but at the same time, I've challenged it too. And as I'm going to be 40 next year. I just feel like the calm is calling a little bit louder than the frazzled state. And I choose to see it as a sign of, I don't know if it's growth, but at least is like following my heart. I feel like as I've slowly rewired my nervous system, the calm feels better than having a spiked, nervous system where there's like dopamine drops and adrenaline peaks and all those things that I think I kind of loved before. So it's just taken a lot of time to accept who I am and also change in a way that's still authentic to myself. But that's where I'm at right now. I I'm a little bit more of a private person, but I also have this deep desire in my heart to help and to be of service. I love the recovery community. And I love just what you said. If I can help make someone not feel alone, it's the least I can do because there are so many people that do that for me all the time. Sometimes it's people we know, sometimes it's people that we don't know, but that's kind of what I'm doing, just trying to walk the walk every day and choose calm and peace and also have fun because the stuff is hard already. So just have fun and enjoy life and stay present, stay in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. Every time you do, it hits me. I think where I connect with you so much as also a recovering perfectionist is that when you tell your story, you don't try to wrap it up in this pretty little bow. Like you tell all of the hard parts, all of the, dark parts. I mean, I remember listening to your episode. You hosted Recovery Elevator for a year, and I remember that episode where you were like, "Listen, guys, this is what happened." And you could feel the guilt and the shame in your voice, but the authenticity that you had, the accountability that you had, you owned your mistake. And I mean, I feel like we all rallied around you, but I know that had to weigh really heavy on you because you were in the public's eye, and a leader in that community, and you still are 100%. But yeah, as someone that can relate to you in terms of the perfectionism, I found your story to be incredibly empowering because you didn't try to make it sound perfect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like it's also been a little bit tough to talk about recovery lately because at least right now I do feel more on the other side of perfectionism and I feel like sometimes I don't have the best advice to give to newcomers because at the beginning it was very helpful to me to the prescription was go to a meeting, follow your food plan, talk to somebody else who's in recovery. And now I feel I get maybe because I've done it for so long, I'm so much more graceful with myself when I don't do the checklist, when I don't wake up at 5. It used to be like, oh my God, I didn't do it or blah, blah, blah. And now I feel like through time, one of the biggest tools for me had been like, talk to how are you talking to yourself? And over the years, changing that inner narrator to be like, how would you talk to a friend? We hear that all the time. Now I'm like, I can't believe that I can hear my own thoughts telling myself, it doesn't matter. Like, at least you tried. Like how I talk to my kids, which is such an indicator that the perfectionist in me at least has been tamed. I don't know if she's fully gone, but trained enough to be kind and to really, the outcome really doesn't matter to me anymore. I think because I know that the outcome doesn't mean anything. The outcome used to mean everything. It used to mean you give a good outcome, you get love, you get the respect, you get the relationship you want, you get the attention from your mom. But now the outcome is just the thing you can say you did. Like, oh, I did a race and here's my medal, but it doesn't change anything. I'm very blessed to be in a family where you are loved no matter what. And It doesn't matter what the outcome is. So I guess that's allowed me to loosen the grip on perfection, knowing that there's really not a lot on the line when it comes to the outcome. It's more about the journey and what you're doing with your time every day. And yeah, I mean, you just never will get there anyway. We'll never get to the top of the mountain, which can be defeating on some days and can be very empowering on other days. So it's just learning to ride those waves. Lots of acceptance. We hear that word so much, and it's same. Sometimes I love hearing it. Sometimes I'm like, shut up with that acceptance. I don't want to accept that this is the thing.
Yeah.
But I try. I try to be honest. Honesty is important to me and it's hard, but I appreciate you saying that because yeah, it's hard to just say the truth sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny when you're describing, it makes me think of that Miley Cyrus song, The Climb. Like it's about the climb. It's not the view at the top. It's about the climb.
It's so funny. I mean, obviously it's like the confirmation bias. Like if you buy a red car, then you see a red car everywhere. I feel like I've been listening to a lot of conversations that aren't even recovery related in podcasts. Like this guy who won an Oscar, he won the Oscar, which was the end of the climb. And then he's like I got home and there were leftover donuts from my kids in the morning, and I just had like half of eaten donut and took a shower and went to sleep. Like the peak wasn't everything. And then when I look back at making the movie, that's what was giving me the joy and the delight and the fulfillment that I was looking for. Versus once you're up there, yes, you can enjoy the view, but not only do you have to come back down, but also that's just a second and a glimpse. And I just keep hearing it in different contexts, right? Like you think when you get the job, you think when you get the partner, and really that's not where the solution lies, which is tough to come to terms with, especially when you're a goal-driven person like us. Like I have this two opposing truths happening in my brain where I don't care, but also really care and love goals and love strategizing to meet the goals, but also don't care. The whole two truths can exist also is a biggie for me. It doesn't have to be one way or the other, but yeah, it's the climb, Miley
Yeah.
Cyrus.
Yeah. I know it's well, and to put it in a different context, we don't listen to a song just to hear the end of the song. We
Right.
enjoy the song all the way through, you know?
Or a book, right?
Oh, yeah, same thing. I had some follow-up questions I wanted to ask you. There's a heavy correlation between alcohol use disorder and eating disorders. In your opinion, why do you think that is?
Well, yeah, that is a fact. I think if I have the stat right, 50% of women who have an eating disorder and recover from it will then become alcoholics. Like it's a pretty high number. I think the reason is there's a difference between curing a behavior and getting to the root cause of something, which I think I praise any and all programs that are helping people struggling to stay actively in recovery. But I think getting to the why you're doing things or why you are choosing to numb or what it is that you're running away from, what it is that you're in pain and scared to confront. That's when the co-occurring addictions come. That's what I think as a non-expert is that you can change a habit and you can have willingness and have enough energy and support and community to help you change a habit. But if your insides and what's really there stuck bothering you, if it's not addressed, your body's going to find another way to help with that. It's either now it's like either the phones or booze or gambling. It's just this like if you're not curing that inner dis-ease, you're not at ease internally, then there's some sort of a disease that's going to come out of it because your insides are not at ease, which I think is the case for literally everyone now. Like we're all on the spectrum, I think, at this point with struggling internally with something. But I think it takes a lot of courage, time, and patience with yourself to say, like, I'm ready to go in. And sometimes you think you're ready, but you go like 3 steps in and then you come back out and sometimes, you're like, no, I'm just going to walk around this. Because that's the other thing. I feel like it's a privilege to take a journey within and figure out what is wrong with you or whatever. Not everyone has the time, the resources, the energy. So sometimes you're like, I'm going to go and get in on this ring and like, I'm ready to fight. And sometimes you're like, I just need to like be a spectator for a little bit. So I think it's very non-linear, but I think what happens is the brain is like, well, what else can I hold on to ease this pain or this discomfort?
Yeah, that's really well said. I wanted to ask you about your running journey. One, my first question for you there is how did that come to be? And then my second question is a little more complicated because sometimes I feel like I struggle with this too. But having an exercise addiction, so to speak, how to keep that behavior in a healthy way when you have these past issues.
Yes. My running journey started when I moved to the States. I moved here because of a boy, John, who's now my husband, but I moved here and he had just done a marathon. And it's funny that we're talking now because we're doing that marathon this Sunday together. So it'll be kind of like full circle, which I'm very excited about. But he was telling me about it and I told him, I'm not a runner. I've never been a runner. I don't know how to run. Like that would always be my go-to response. And he was like, anybody can run. You just have to train and practice like anything. But like you can't say that you're not one. You just haven't tried it or haven't worked on it. And he got me curious. I'm like, maybe he's onto something. Maybe I should try it. And I was very shy about it. So I would go out by myself and try to do like a mile or 2 miles and just slowly started progressing. Now I'm the runner out of the two of us. Now I love running so much more than he does. But it's been really cool to have that journey in a lot of ways be in parallel with my recovery journey because I do feel like running has helped me get a lot of self-confidence and has helped me really believe and have my brain tangibly acknowledge that I can do something hard and like there's proof that I can do it and here's the proof. I went out there and I did it and I kept these promises to myself. Like when I think of all these things that matter to me, like I'm accountable to myself. I did what I said I would do. I was bummed, but I did it anyway. I was scared, but I did it anyway. I think it's just full of life lessons. And I know that you agree on this one. So it's been a really amazing journey. I thought that I'd never go far, and I've gone far. Like I thought I would only do 5Ks, and that you start stretching the distance and managing the food thing. I think for the first few years before I went to rehab, I was playing with fire there. I know when I got my panels, like the health panels, when you check into rehab, my doctor told me that something on my electrolyte levels was so off from the purging and not being healthy while I was running that he said, you are lucky that you haven't had a situation happen in a race. At that point, I think 10K was the most I was doing, but he was like, you could have collapsed and have some like injury. Maybe I didn't look outwardly, but inside, like you could have damaged your organs and looks like it was right on time. But then I kind of paused it while we were having kids and all of that. And then when I resumed it, I feel like I'm happy that I don't feel my addiction went there. I think when I started running again after kids, my addiction was into the drinking. So like I would still run, but it wasn't like, how much do I need to run? That was kind of in check. And definitely there's always in the back of a person with an eating disorder, there's always like a conversation happening of like, ooh, I probably like I'm gonna look good because I'm running so much. Like that, no matter how long you're in recovery for it, that's happening. But I feel like maybe being here, like a working parent, I never had the time for that addiction or for that thing to get dangerous because I would have like an hour to run and that's it. I couldn't over exercise or exercise for days. I've always been a full-time working bee here since I moved here, plus the kids. So it's only been recently that I've been doing some ultra distances that I've been running many more hours to where you would have to be careful. And a lesson that I know you and I both have learned and shared is, I know that if I want to be a strong runner, I have to eat more. So when I signed up for my first ultra last year, I was working with a nutritionist because I'm thankfully no longer at a point where like I don't skip meals, I don't restrict. I feel like I'm at a really good place with food, but I just knew that I would be working out so much more that I was worried and I wanted to stay strong and healthy. So that was helpful because she kind of let me know where I needed to be adding things. It's not easy to add a bunch of food, like I said, when you have an eating disorder past, but I feel good. I haven't had a scale for many years, which I think has been very helpful for me. I've been tempted to get one. I've been tempted to go on these like, oh, on Monday I'll do this. And it's just all these conversations that are happening that I'm always doing opposing action. Like I hear it, yeah, on Monday we're not going to do carbs. And then in the morning I'm like having my little peanut butter bread. It's like always just opposing action. Opposing action, I think, is the key to that one, or it has been for me. And then you're just like lifting weights. You're just doing that rep over and over again, where luckily it's not a thing for me at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful. I have one more question before our lightning round. You have mentioned you've been in recovery most of your life. So, what would you say a life in recovery has taught you about yourself?
I think it's taught me that you can be loved no matter what, and that includes yourself. Like, I don't have to perfect myself or fix myself to be loved. And I am very blessed to live with people that, we're not a perfect family, but I do know that. I do know that they love me no matter what, and they love me for who I am. And I just hope that I can reflect that back at them, starting with the kids. And we always say, I love you no matter what. And that does not mean, because this is another thing I've learned through recovery, is you have to be accountable. That does not mean there's no accountability, but there is no perfection. And it's really special to love and be loved through imperfection. It's been probably the biggest gift. I didn't know what that was before. I didn't even know it existed. The whole world we live in. You're dating people, so you have to like impress and your best foot forward. And it's like, yeah, who you are when you're your brightest, and then who you are when you are casting a shadow. First of all, you're the same person. You're that person and that person. And both are worthy of love, which is very special.
Yeah. Ah, that was so good. Save that, banked that one in my brain. I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for sharing your story and all the wisdom that you gave me and the listeners today.
Of course, thank you. I'm a talker and a rambler, so thank you for listening.
Oh my gosh, I could listen to you all day, girl. All right, let's do your lightning round. This is a fun get to know you segment to close out the episode because people get invested in you after they hear your story. So, the first question is, do you have any hidden talents?
Oh my God, I don't know if I want to make this public. It's like a family thing. It's been public in one post or two. It's never been shown, so you'll have to take my word on it. But I can do a pretty good butt clap.
Wow.
You were not expecting that? Maybe next time I see you, I'll show you. We've been
I can't wait.
escalating this. It came from a clap to, can you do this melody? Can you do this little? It's kind of funny. It's a family joke. You guys, whoever's listening, you are in on a family gem.
That was awesome. Okay, number two. What song instantly puts you in a good mood?
The whole Dear Evan Hansen soundtrack. Our whole family loves it. I went to see that play during COVID, a little bit after COVID. It's a beautiful soundtrack. You Will Be Found is probably my favorite song. It's a good
I
one.
love it. Number three. What is the last concert that you've been to?
Mhm. I'm going to Olivia Dean next month with my daughter,
Oh,
and then I'm going to
that's
Noah Khan in August here in San Diego. But the
okay.
last concert I went to, I think maybe two French DJs in Red Rocks in Denver, at Polo and Pan, two French DJs, and they put on a really good dance party. It was fun.
And an amazing place.
I've
Red Rocks
never
is
been and absolutely loved it. Yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I've been to Red Rocks just to like run the stairs, but I've never seen a show. It's on my bucket list for sure.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Number four. What would be your last meal?
Something with French fries. Probably a burger with French fries. I'm a sucker for a good burger with French fries, but always dessert. I'm a sweet person. I'm a chocolate person. I have chocolate every night with my sleepy tea. So a burger with a side of chocolate dessert.
On the episode, well, when you would host Recovery Elevator, you would talk about mango or something.
Spicy chili mango.
Yes, yes,
I
that's it.
always have it.
I thought you were going to say that.
It's delicious. Now they make like the Waterloo spicy chili mango flavor. I do love it,
Mhm.
but that's more of a snack, Megan. You asked me for a meal.
True. Okay. Good point. Good point. Last question, kind of a heavy question. What type of legacy do you hope to leave behind?
I really have felt empowered when I think about family trees and what we do as people in recovery. I think a lot about how my family tree changed completely when my dad chose to get sober and when I chose this path too, and what it means for generations ahead. When you really sit and think about it, it's so powerful because I think that the way that people in recovery live is not perfect, that it's kind and it's true and it's whole. And like I said, it's accountable. I think it's so beautiful that I can do my part for who's next and that hopefully it sticks to where it creates this big ripple in the family. You know, you hear all these stories about like alcoholism runs in my family and this is how it's been forever. How cool if it's like 10 people deep in recovery. And it's like, oh my God, like almost like when the first person in a family goes to college, and when the first person in a family enters recovery. And what does that mean from then on? It means everything. So that on a sad, yappy day or emotional day, that really gets me, that thought of how that heals the future, how that heals part of your family's past. It's a lot. Like it's very powerful when you really think about it.
Yeah. I agree. I definitely agree. I can't thank you enough. It's such an honor to have you on the show. Where can people follow you if they're interested in your breath work and your journey and your running? You're running ultras. We talked about maybe doing javelina next year. So where can people follow you?
Yeah, I am on Instagram mostly only on my personal account, which is Odette.Kressler. I share just random topics on there from running to just posts of my family, my pets that I love so much, but that's where I also sometimes use it just as a little journal and share my thoughts. But yep, just I'm there on Instagram, Odette.Kressler.
Yay. All right, girl. I hope you have the best weekend.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Love you. Bye.